This is Museum Backstage, where we pull the curtain wide open on the hidden world of museums, galleries, and cultural spaces. If you think museums are only about quiet halls and priceless objects, think again. Behind the scenes is a world of high-stakes decisions, creative problem-solving, and people who keep culture alive against the odds. You will hear bold voices, untold stories, and fresh perspectives that challenge how we see preservation, power, and the future of collections. Here is your host, Samantha Hunt-Durán.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Museum Backstage. Today, we're behind the scenes with an art consultant and arts leader who has spent over a decade helping people connect with art in ways that feel meaningful and approachable. She specializes in guiding clients from first-time collectors to seasoned professionals through the process of discovering, acquiring, and living with art as part of their daily lives. Today, she's the owner of Delia LaJeunesse Art Consulting, where she works with designers, homeowners, and collectors to make art collecting more accessible, personal, and transformative. And when she's not working, she's likely outdoors running or hiking, doing the Colorado things, or hosting community dinners and high teas. With that, say hello to my guest, Delia LaJeunesse. Welcome to the show, Delia.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because, as everyone's going to hear, Delia has such a cool point of view and perspective on the arts in general, and I'm really looking forward to it. Today, we'll start by talking about how we can make art a part of our day-to-day lives, and we'll also touch on topics like living with art, approaches to sourcing art, reframing the transactional nature of the art market. I'm looking forward to talking about that, and the future of private collecting. And those who stay on to the very end will hear Delia's answers to her most frequently asked questions. How does that all sound to you, Delia?
Sounds amazing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, let's jump right in, talk about the art world. I hear a lot, and I feel the same way, really, that in the art world, collecting can feel intimidating and reserved for the elite. And we're in Colorado. We have the Aspen art market in particular. That's one of the most elite in the world. And I'm wondering, Delia, how are you reframing that in your day-to-day?
I think it's a pretty big part of what I am trying to do in my work is just really helping people see that art is a part of what makes us human and can be really deeply integrated into our lives. And I feel like it, for so many reasons, has been pushed into this like very elitist, intimidating realm. But the reality is that art is genuinely for everybody. It is actually very approachable and accessible because it's emotional. It is really just about tapping into your experience of the art and being able to step away from the academic language of it a little bit and just have a feeling around it and have your own personal response to it. And yeah, it feels very important to me to help people really form that connection and have that deeper relationship with the work of art and not feel like it needs to be this really pretentious, intimidating experience.
I want to hear more about your business because I know our listeners are going to be really interested in what you do. It's pretty unique, especially your approach to making art more more approachable, but also the types of clients that you work with. So tell everyone, what's your business, what it's about, what is it about, and what's your mission?
Yes. So, really, as an art consultant, I feel that I'm a guide to clients to really finding the right pieces for them. So, I'm not representing artists, I don't hold inventory, which allows me to be really responsive to what the client is actually looking for and serve as a bridge in a way to help them find pieces that are really resonant to them emotionally, that tell their personal narrative, that hit on all these different layers that art does in our home. I work with private clients. I'm almost exclusively in the residential realm. So either private clients for their homes or interior designers who are working on residential projects. And yeah, I'm sourcing art from all over the place, and I'm doing a really personal, tailored approach to finding the right pieces for clients. And also going the step further of helping them develop language around it and learn how to integrate it into their daily lives so that it's not just this decor element that they've added, but something that has real depth and meaning for them.
I really want to underscore that because I have encountered other art consultants before who have different approaches or different perspectives on filling a space with artwork. And usually, depending on the client, usually it's investment driven about what that consultant believes is going to be the best return on investment in terms of the artist or other factors, and or it's more matching an aesthetic vision that maybe an interior designer has. But it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your approach is really tailored to the people who are going to be in that space every day at the end. It's not about what they're gonna turn a 10 times profit on when they sell it in the future. And it's not really about this aesthetic theme of just things that are going to look nice. It's a bit more tailored than that. Am I right?
Yeah, you are right. And I think we can have conversations across all of those different categories. Art can be an investment, probably shouldn't be your main reason for collecting. It's not a very liquid asset. It can be super aesthetic and design oriented, and it can be really meaningful. And I think that it is absolutely possible to weave all of those. I think that art that feels personal and emotionally resonant is the art that you are actually going to experience wonderful things living with and actually benefit from. And so it feels really important to me that it takes the step beyond just an investment or a visual element of your house and can be something that kind of serves you, that is a resource to you in your daily life. And I like to think about art as a signpost or as an opportunity to visually express your values in some way. It can help you. We place art all over our house. And so thinking about the function of where that art is, if it's at your doorway, how does that art both usher you out into the world and welcome you back home? It's very functional in that way. When it's in your bedroom, what is the emotional experience that you're trying to have in your bedroom, which is also a dual situation. You're waking up and going to sleep. And I like to think about those richer elements of what the mood is and the vibe is that you are actually trying to create through that art, because it can look good, but if it doesn't speak to you at all, if it doesn't move you at all, it's not going to be something that you'll keep for very long, and it's not doing what it could do in your home.
That's a really interesting approach too, to think about it being artwork being functional. It's not just something that you glance at in day to day. It sounds like your perspective is that really meaningful placement and selection of art can make it a to make it serve a space and to serve the people in the space. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that comes from my feeling that art really is, it's like this relational experience. It's not just this, I mean, it is an inanimate object, but it feels much deeper than that, and that you grow with it over time and your interpretation of it changes over time. Like it is very alive in a lot of ways. And I think recognizing that it's this part of your home, this like almost living entity, it feels important to give more weight to it and to think about how it's actually interacting with the space, what conversations are being had because of it. Like it is very instrumental in a lot of different ways.
Oh, that's really neat. And I'm wondering, I'm sure your clients are choosing to work with you because of your unique perspective on having meaning in the art that you choose in your space. But do you feel that you have to explain this approach to people because it's really a unique approach? Do people just get it? And the people that seek you out, like just intuitively, they're like, yes, I want a meaningful piece that's going to work for me in my space? Or do you feel like you have to coach a little bit of your clients through why that's important?
It's a pretty big mix. I feel like there are some people who really understand what art can do and want that powerful emotional experience. Maybe they've had it in a museum or a gallery and really want that experience at home in a very comfortable environment. And then there are people who maybe just finished a massive interior design project and have all these blank spaces that they know need art, but have not quite connected the full experience that can come from living with that art. And I think that it's the show, don't tell type of thing. It's really finding artwork that actually connects with them, that they feel very lit up by, that the conversation takes off from, instead of telling them this is going to be meaningful, helping it actually feel meaningful. And I think I do that mostly through curiosity and dialogue with people, and just helping to draw out these deeper connections when we're looking at art that we haven't even placed in the house yet, just trying to unearth those reactions and emotional responses.
It seems like a really personal process, especially because you're usually working in someone's home or a personal space. I'm wondering, what's the biggest misconception that people have about collecting art for their home or personal space?
I have so many misconceptions. I think that, I don't know, for whatever reason, we have such a strange view of art in American culture, at least. I feel like God, I don't even know where to begin. I think that accessibility is the biggest thing. I feel like people have this idea in their heads that they can't buy art or collect art until they have a certain degree of wealth, or until they're like 50 or 60. It's a very strange idea that we're like waiting until some point to buy art. I think budget is a huge part of that. There is not a lot of transparency in the art world in terms of how things are priced, which I feel like adds to that feeling of intimidation and overwhelm that we talked about at the beginning. But I think that the stories that we hear about the art market are the extreme examples of how expensive things can get. And people don't necessarily realize that you can buy art for $100 if you know where to look. So I think money is probably the biggest misconception. I also think that I've heard so many people say that they just don't get art, that it's like not something that they resonate with. And to me, I think that we need to be initiated into our relationship with art, and we just don't. I mean, it's not taught in school. We don't really have conversations on arts appreciation or these like deeper layers. So you're either already interested in all forms of art, or you feel totally on the outside of it and have this idea that you need to do a lot of learning, or have there's some knowledge missing in order to get art, which I just really do not believe is true.
That's a great point. That's what I hear a lot from people who aren't in my field, museum, gallery field, art field, is this feeling that they're an outsider, that, to your point, that they haven't been initiated into this world, and so they have no right to participate in it. I'm wondering, how do you help clients move past that intimidation or even fear of like their own bad taste or uninformed taste?
I really tried to take a very educational and unpretentious approach, and just have normal conversations with people about art. I think that we think we need a lot of jargon and terminology, and like it can just be a very straightforward conversation on art. And I think very gentle prompting and question asking can really help people uncover their own sense of taste and their own language for speaking about art. You really do not need to know anything. And I think it's just beginning to have those conversations and validating people's feelings. It's very interesting to me. And I do this intake with clients where we look at like 100 different pieces of art, just all across the board, different styles, techniques, everything. And in that intake, these are not pieces that I've selected for them. It's the same for every client. And so many people feel like they're going to offend me if they tell me they don't like the piece. It's really interesting to me. And I feel like there's such a sense that you're not allowed to say what you really think about a work of art, that there's like a delicacy to it, which not every piece is for every person. Like everybody has to be able to acknowledge that. it's so subjective. And I think just that alone, validating people's gut reactions to pieces can really help open up how they're going to engage with art.
That's really interesting, that intake process, that there's a cross section of art that you've chosen specifically to gauge a person's particular taste. Are you seeing any trends with your clients of what people are gravitating to right now, depending on what space it's for? Or is it really a person, like person by person, just all over the board?
It's pretty person by person. It's actually interesting in that intake because I've done it the same pieces with so many people. Like people have very strong opposing reactions to the same works. Like it really is so subjective to the person, and yeah, it's fascinating. But no trends that I've really noticed. I think there are things that a lot of people either really want or really do not want, but I don't know that's a trend. I feel like that's been true probably for a long time.
And that fact, just the fact that in that intake, it is so across the board, like there are not big trends in taste, just really validates your whole business premise and mission that this is art experiences are deeply personal, and it's not about good taste or bad taste. It's just about your taste, especially in your
Yeah.
own space.
Yeah, I think it comes back to why we're not talking about art as an investment, because if that's the primary focus, it really is my taste and my idea of what's good art as opposed to the clients. And it's a really big distinction. Your experience living with art that someone told you is good is very different than your experience of living with art that you deeply connect to.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point, and why this perspective of art collecting is so different than one that's investment driven or otherwise, or trend driven, because there are trends in the art market, but if you don't resonate with them, why would you put them in your home?
Yes.
Thank you. This leads to a question I'm sure you ask all the time. This leads me to your approaches for sourcing art, because we talked about it, like the intake form, you're getting a sense of someone's personal taste, their likes and dislikes, and what they need in the space. How do you find art once you have those key data points? What's your next step?
This is one of my frequently asked, so I'm glad
Ah,
you're asking.
well, we're taking one off right now.
There we go. So I mentioned that I don't represent artists, which allows me to really source from all over the place. So I pretty much entirely work in the primary market, which means that I'm not buying works that have been resold. It's usually from living artists. So I'm buying either directly from the artist or directly from the gallery that's representing them. Really all over the place. I have a pretty big database of artists that I've just been logging after years of consuming art and arts media, and I'm constantly finding new artists on social media. I'm on a lot of different newsletters that share artists every week. That is always interesting to me. Getting press releases from galleries and exhibition cycles and all of that. So it's really I source far and wide for sure. And I'm pretty across the board in terms of independent artists, unknown artists, represented artists, mid-career, whatever is being called for, I will happily log and source from.
That's really neat. And I like the approach of going as close as you can directly to artists and supporting them instead of buying it from someone, another owner of artwork. I think that's really important in supporting, especially local. Every artist is local somewhere. So
Yeah.
supporting just artists in general. Why is that important to your work? Why does it matter?
So I, before running this company, was running a nonprofit arts organization, and our mission was to provide paid platforms to emerging artists. It has always been very interesting to me to think about how to really support artists. I really feel that artists help us make meaning and are so essential to help us process the world. They feel critically important to me. So started that nonprofit to really try to provide platforms for artists. And I feel like we did do it. We were able to do that, but it felt very one-off and singular, and is really why I ended up pivoting towards this, where I feel like I'm able to offer a little bit broader support in terms of getting people excited about art collecting. If you can develop someone as an art collector, they theoretically invest in the arts across their lifetime, which feels more meaningful to me, a little bit more systemic. But it just feels very important to me. I feel that artists are there. It's a very tough job. There are not that many opportunities for artists. I think that they are so critical to our world and our well-being, and finding ways to directly support them, especially if they are somewhat new in their career and on the emerging, unknown, upcoming side of things. It feels like being discoverable in a world with so much art and being so inundated by options, it's very challenging. And yeah, it just feels so good to be able to actually support them. And then on the other side, on the client side, I think it's really meaningful to be able to have a connection and a relationship to a living artist. And it becomes a part of the story that you tell about your art piece, and this like deeper element. You're telling your feeling and your interpretation of it, but you also get to share the story of the artist and their background and what their inspiration was. And I think that can be really interesting for
Wow,
people.
that's really cool. It's like you're this connector in the middle and you're creating this symbiotic relationship between your clients, who are the collectors, and the artists on the other side, creating what people are collecting. That's really cool.
Yeah, I do feel like a bridge.
Yeah, like a bridge, exactly. And what a great way to promote, I think, your mission across your clients is that connection to the artist, to the person who created it. Because I think when we're talking about the art market in general, one of the reasons, at least to me, why it's so intimidating is that it's hard to understand systemically how it works, because you're like, okay, there's galleries and there's like auction houses and people sell things and buy things and there's museums involved, and it's like this really complicated system, whereas we can all understand this person made this artwork and I'm buying it from them, or at least the gallery representing them. That's the simplest way to enter this market, I think.
Yeah, I almost regret saying that there are primary and secondary markets. There are, but a simpler way to put it that's less overwhelming is just direct from artist or direct from gallery. Because, and this is why I'm excited about your podcast, but I think that it is very confusing to navigate. It is so opaque. And yeah, it just adds to the intimidation and to why people never do it, because it's impossible to figure out where to even begin, and what gallery are you going to walk into, and which artists are you going to follow, and what are the expectations. And it's just, yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, yeah. I can speak from experience. I think in 2018, I went to Art Basel. So, the Art Basel, not in Miami, but in Basel, in Switzerland. And to see the amount of galleries and the amount of artists in just, it was, I thought it would be more, when I thought it would be that I entered the space, I was there in the market and I would just get it and I wouldn't be as intimidated by it. Not the case. When I was there, I just got more confused and intimidated
Yeah.
than I was when I started. And I'm like in this industry more or less, in the museum and collection side. And I was really impressed by that moment, because I said, if I'm overwhelmed by this, how does everyone else feel who's never even set foot in a museum or gallery?
100%. I have had the same experience so many times of just being like, God, this is just too much. It's really very overwhelming. Have you been to Bell Projects on 17th?
I haven't.
It's a little gallery, but in the back, they have a room set up like a living room, which I appreciate. They have a couch there. They put art up. And I feel like it's this interesting, and I think other galleries are doing this, but it's a nice way to help you, first of all, visualize the art in an actual living space, not a white box gallery with amazing lighting. But I feel like it also is like okay, get a little comfortable and sit here and linger and think about the art and have this slightly more relaxed experience of it, as opposed to walking into a museum or a gallery where your shoes are making so much noise for some reason. You're the only person in there. Like everyone is coming up to you, asking you questions. There's such a feeling that you're supposed to buy something, which I don't think that gallerists intend. I think that they are there to converse with you, but it's already so intimidating. And yeah, it gets very scary very quickly.
They're not necessarily like traditionally inviting spaces. It's the white wall, very contemporary, cold and sterile environment. And to your point, it's hard to imagine that painting that you see on the wall in this sterile gallery setting in your living room.
Yep. With like your mess and your stacks of things and your couch and like all these other components that matter to you. And yeah, it can be a difficult jump to make, I think.
Huh, that's neat that some galleries are catching on to that. I'll definitely link to that gallery that you mentioned in our show notes so that people can check it out. So thank you for that recommendation because again, I'm in the industry and I feel intimidated every time I go into a gallery because I feel like, oh, they're going to expect me to buy something or say something really clever about that.
I know. It's a lot.
It's a high pressure situation, which is why I think everyone who's listening is going to be really thankful that there's people like you who can be our intermediary.
Yes.
And
The navigators. Yes.
we appreciate it. So we've been talking or skirting this topic a little bit that the art market can feel intimidating, it can feel transactional in nature, especially when you're talking about like galleries and artists being represented by them. How do you keep the emotional and personal side of that experience front and center for your clients?
I do a lot of these arts appreciation practices that I feel like help us slow down a little bit and reconnect to whatever your value is or whatever your intention is with your art collection, and just really bringing it all back to sometimes one of the arts appreciation things is like a very somatic body based thing. So just really bringing it back to your body and where you are connecting to the art and what you are actually feeling. I think some of these are dialogue oriented or like kind of curiosity driven, like just asking questions about it and uncovering these different elements. And I feel like it recontextualizes the art piece in your own life. It takes it out of this like either gallery setting or I mean it's the artist's, but it also will become yours. Like you do get this dual ownership thing. And so I think it's a way to just really bring it back to your own life and draw out your own connections to it. And, I think reading artists' bios and statements are very interesting and it can add layers to it. But ultimately, I think anything that we can do to bring it back to how you feel about it, what it makes you think of, how you want to talk about it, just really helps personalize it again.
I like this approach of guiding clients through art appreciation practices like you described because those of us who have gone through some kind of studio art background or even art history, we get some of these tools. Not all. I'm still working on it myself, but we get some of these tools in terms of being able to critique an artwork in art studio, for instance, or in art history, parsing out really rudimentary things about color and composition. But that knowledge, does it really equate to art appreciation? Because we're not really being taught. Art critique a little bit is about what you think of an artwork in a classroom setting, but in art history, it's just a little bit more about just being able to describe these pieces. So where does the art appreciation, the part where, but what do I feel about it? And do I care about it? I feel like that's missing.
I think it's missing too. And I like that you brought up the like 7 elements of art because it is a traditional way that we talk about art. But I think that you can make it feel meaningful by literally all you were doing is adding this element of meaning making, where, okay, if you're going to talk about the color, get into a free association state and talk about what pops up around that color. What does that make you feel? What object from your childhood calls to mind? All of these very random associative exercises you can do. And then you move on to composition and you do a similar thing where you're thinking about, okay, removing like the subject matter, what compositionally does this make me think of? And then putting those into conversations with each other through the lens of your own life, like really letting it be personal to you and taking it out of this arts history conversation and just working through those elements in relation to your own life or any other arts appreciation thing.
It's like almost a mini therapy session with these free
Totally.
attention. Like, what does that blue make me feel? It makes me feel sad. I wonder why that is. Maybe I shouldn't have it in my office if it's going to make me feel that way. Oh, how interesting. What a unique way to experience art. I think when I talk to people who are not in the industry about museums in particular, and the fact that a lot of people don't feel welcomed in museums just because they don't have that background of the seven compositional thing, the art history. They don't have the terms and the jargon in our industry to be able to say, ooh, that composition is really dynamic because of whatever is happening. And they feel like because they don't have that background that they aren't welcome in these discussions. But really, that's just one way to experience artwork, and it's not a way that you want to experience something in your house. You don't want to be thinking about compositional elements when you have something hanging in your living room necessarily. That doesn't seem to me to be the best way that art can work for you.
Yeah, I think that it works for people who are really process and analytically driven. It can be difficult to get into a somatic conversation if you're like very in your head. And so it can be a tool to understand a work of art, to create an interpretation around it, which you can learn. It's not like these are terms that are impossible to learn. But generally speaking, I think the less jargon, the better across all industries. I really don't know why we have to do that. It's so exclusionary. It feels bad.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that as well, because on the preservation side of things, oh yeah, it's you start bringing science and physics concepts into it, and people even in the industry, they have the sense of what, like preservation and conservation, they throw their hands up and I'm never going to understand that. And it's really just because they don't know the word.
Totally.
They understand the concepts. They're not that complicated.
If you can say it in plain English, say it in plain English. Like it's very strange to me.
So you're almost fostering this new way of collecting and opening art collection up to people who would otherwise not feel that it's for them. So it's almost this new wave of collectors that are maybe more, I'm going to do air quotes for people who are just listening, but like normal people who just want something in their house, who don't have millions of dollars to spend. As you're welcoming this new group of collectors into the space and connecting them to artists and making them feel more welcome in our industry, where do you see private collecting heading in the next decade or so?
I'm curious about a couple of things. I feel like generationally, what's the generation after us?
Oh, Gen Z? Wait,
Okay.
Gen
I
X?
get confused by X and Z sometimes, so I think Z.
I think you're right. I think it's Z. I think Gen X is before.
X is before us, Z is after us.
Yeah, we're millennials, by the way.
Yes, we're millennials. I really feel that millennials and Gen Z in all of our consuming are very interested in things like social impact and connection to people. I feel like we are very values driven in a way that I feel like other generations weren't necessarily, in investments and just general consumption. And so I do feel like we will continue to have a desire for these deeper conversations around what the art is doing, who's making it, what it's saying about us and our values and priorities, and also what it's supporting out in the world. I also think that AI is very interesting right now. And my theory with it, which I feel like I'm starting to see, but we'll see how it pans out. But I feel like as things become more automated and machine made, we will continue to gravitate deeper and deeper towards this narrative based component of what we are consuming, that we want to be able to tell the story of who made it and why it mattered to them, not just in our art, but in our furniture, in our ceramics, like across the board. I think that we will begin to invest more and more into people again. And I think want to be able to tell about the deeper connections to the work and to the person behind the work. That's my theory. We'll see.
Oh, this is a really interesting perspective, and I'm really glad to hear it because it's so refreshing. And I just, as you were talking about AI and AI versus kind of material, someone making something with their own hands and ideas, it gave me this counterpoint to what I'm hearing, which is this really surface level, almost panic driven thing where they're saying, oh, artists, there's not going to be any artists anymore because AI can create anything now. And why would we ever pay extra for a person? But I think that's so surface level because, to your point, when a market gets flooded by something like AI art that we can see in Hobby Lobby, we can see in IKEA, like it's pretty ubiquitous now, that's flooding the
Already.
market. And the people who are making things with their own brains and hands are going to become this commodity, right? I guess it maybe increases this demand and potentially value of people work.
I think it's very possible future, and I hope that's what we go towards. I think it's interesting with AI art. It's better than I thought it would be, to be totally honest with you. It's pretty alarming. And I think I think I used to say, and I don't know that I can say this anymore, but I used to feel like you're just not going to have the same emotional response to a piece of AI art. But it's actually gotten pretty good. So I don't know that's true anymore. I think it really will be about seeking this deeper connection to the relationship that you can build with that artist and to their story, and creating a unique conversation between their story and your story, which really is the only one that can be had. And these deeper components of, okay, how does this piece of work fit into their artist's body of work, and understanding it in a more layered way. And that will be something that becomes a gravitational pull for collectors, and this added component to it. Because yeah, I don't know, it's not so much in visual art, but these videos that AI is putting out where there's like imperfections and these weird like human stutters and like errors. I'm like, oh my God, this is scary. It's very effective. You really can't necessarily tell the difference all the time. And yeah, anyway, I think it's narratively based. And I actually think while artists have a lot of work all the time and so much pressure from so many different angles, I think that this one is not, it should not be this enormous amount of effort to help differentiate yourself from the world of AI art, because we have social media and video and all of these platforms to tell our story and to help connect collectors to who we are and why we are making art, that are pretty accessible, and I think can be a really big difference to just drawing out that deeper connection.
That's a really nice perspective. I'm glad to hear it. It's better than the doom and gloom perspective, I think, in main.
I can't do the doom perspectives.
It's not a sustainable perspective to have.
Really.
And to your point earlier, I think especially millennials and younger collectors are interested in the story, they are interested in the maker, and understanding like processes and material that is conducive to your type of work, which is connecting people to artists, connecting collectors, but everyone, I suppose, to artists. I think your business model and how you've crafted it is really well positioned to navigate this strange AI situation because it's distinct. So there's the people who are collecting AI art and the people who are collecting purposefully from artists in, as directly as they can from artists, are just different markets.
Totally.
I want to hear a little bit more about your business and kind of the path that led you to starting your consulting business.
So I mentioned I was running this nonprofit and ultimately stepped down because I was curious about how I could make a broader impact, and was very interested in the audience side and how to really activate people around art and get people more comfortable in it. I stepped down in 2019 and did a lot of iterating and experimenting, and really did not know that I would be doing curatorial consulting work. It just happened out of a lot of curiosity and conversations with people and realizing that people are most comfortable in their homes. And it really is this opportunity to get into those deeper layers. So mostly just like curiosity driven and conversationally driven and organically happened this way. And yeah, through a lot of business iterating.
That's a great point about homes in general, because during the pandemic, it really shifted people's focus inward to their personal spaces. I've read a lot of articles about how when we were forced to sit in our houses, we started looking around and home improvement projects went up, like home furnishing sales went up because we were like, ooh, I am stuck in this space. I actually don't like how I feel in it. And people started really rehauling their homes and even moving, relocating to have more space, maybe out in suburbs because they weren't commuting downtown anymore. And just the idea of how important it is to curate and live in a space that works for you, it became more important than it was before the pandemic. Do you see that trend?
For sure. It's interesting. I'm like such a homebody. So it's always been obviously important to me and like a very central thing. And I love hosting people in my home. And it's like really think about home a lot. But a lot of people don't or didn't. And yeah, I think we definitely are shifting towards that. I also feel like it's like kind of a pop psychology thing a little bit, but I feel like we're talking more about like workplace design and psychology. And also, did you read that book, Your Brain on Art?
No, no, but it's on my
I'm
list.
obsessed with that book. But I feel like they really did a very good job of talking about the benefits of being around art and not making, they talk a little bit about making art, but just like what it is to be around environments that are aesthetically pleasing across all of our senses. And I think that is becoming a little bit more pop psychology, and we're like engaging with it more in our regular world and understanding that your environment plays a huge role in your mood, in your outlook, in your well-being and your health. It's really across the board. So I do definitely feel like we are noticing that. And outside of the home too. After COVID, I feel like a lot of workplaces had to make a big effort to get people back to the office. And I think that art and design are a pretty big component of that. Like really thinking about, okay, are there spaces where people can actually connect and feel joyful and see vibrancy and color and life around them? And I think that those are increasingly popular conversations. So
Yeah, it's an interesting transformation. I've thought more about it and read more about it in the home, but you're totally right. Businesses are trying to entice people to come back and use these spaces that they're paying for, that they've already purchased. Like, please come back. And as people have higher standards for their personal space and their personal workspace, it only makes sense that businesses need to raise their standards as well in terms of the spaces that they curate for their employees. Oh, that's such a cool perspective. So you're a business owner. You are in the art sphere, business sphere. You are working with interior designers as well. How do you balance all of these worlds that you're flowing between? Because you're in a space where you have to interface with people in their homes, interior designers, artists, galleries, you're a business owner. How do you balance it all?
yeah, it's a little lonely to be totally honest with you. I feel like it's why I'm glad to know you and other people in somewhat adjacent industries who are running their own businesses and navigating all of these things, because you go to an entrepreneur networking event and people just don't totally get what I'm doing at all. And you go to artists events and I'm not really a part of the arts community exactly. It's definitely a liminal space to some extent, but I also find it really interesting. I think it's very good for my brain and the way that I think to have a bunch of different pursuits and energies and ways of relaying what I am doing outwardly. It allows me to feel actually more creative in a lot of ways, that I can weave between these different perspectives and priorities and have different kinds of conversations with each of them in order to end with this result of having a client love the art that they're living with. So it's been interesting. It's definitely, I feel for most of my entrepreneurial life, I've been just stumbling around a little bit blind, not really having any idea what I'm doing. But I think I'm slowly, okay, I figured out how to talk to this group and connect with these people. And then I'm like figuring out how to do it over here. And I've got this one down and it's coming together. So it's been a journey for sure.
Yes, I can second that. And in my perspective as well, as an entrepreneur in this arts and culture and museum-y kind of space, it's not a space that traditionally has a lot of business owners that aren't like gallery people. And so when I was trying to just learn as much as I could about being a business owner, because like you, I never saw myself someone who would own a business, there's a lot of resources out there generally for business owners, but not so much for people like us who have to be in so many different spheres and circles. And to your point, it is. I will definitely second that. It can be pretty lonely and isolating.
Yeah. I also think you and I both are in like serious niches. Like we really have very specific things that we're doing. And so there's a lot of crossover and a lot of like overlap. But yeah, the services are never specific at all. And it's a lot of translating into this sphere and then taking something from that and putting it over there. And it's interesting, but I like it.
Yeah, I
It's fun.
like it too because I think you and I like a challenge and we like to always be learning. It's not anything I would recommend for someone who wants to set it and forget it because that's not going to work in our industry. You and I have spoken about artists as business owners before, and this isn't something I prepared you that I would ask, but we're in talking about business owners in this sphere. You have a really unique perspective about wanting to support artists as business owners because I think a lot of artists they see themselves as creators and creatives, but they're running a business, right? Like at the most core of what they're doing, they're supporting their own selves through their creativity. How do you see artists as business owners? Do they see themselves as business owners?
Yeah, I will say again, I feel like it is just one of the toughest jobs because you have to maintain your core of your creativity and your inspiration and your emotional state as an artist. But I do think you really have to understand that you are, if you want to make a living off of it, which not every artist does, but or if you want to have exposure, you really have to see it as a business. And I think that's true regardless of the direction you're going in. If you're trying to get gallery representation or if you're trying to sell direct to clients or whatever your objective is, it's really all about how you are presenting your work and helping to differentiate it from everyone else. There are a lot of artists in the world, and I think it's not that fun for a lot of artists to do this part, but I think that you really do need to think about how can you make this a professional experience so that someone can have trust in the process and be repeat clients and build referrals, and you're putting out a product. It's meaningful and it's poetic and beautiful, but it is something that somebody is going to consume. And yeah, really trying to think about that as a business. It's tough. There have been so many times that I have contacted an artist trying to get a piece for a client and then won't hear back from them for weeks.
Hmm.
Just like very challenging. I have timelines and multiple things going on, and I might really like the art, but I can probably find comparable art to share with the client. And that's a simple thing, but I feel like it just goes into this idea of the art is your business. It's not a hobby. It's not this like random thing that you do occasionally, unless it is, but then keep it in that realm. Don't try to sell it at scale. But it's hard. I really sympathize with artists. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest jobs out there, especially right now. I would categorize you, not to put anyone in a box, but I think you're really entrepreneurial in the most broad sense of the term. you're really thinking of new ideas, you're observant and noticing what this industry needs on either side, clients and artists, and an activist. You're really trying to fight for people on either side and do the best that you can for everyone, which seems like such a big task that you assigned yourself. I'm wondering why do you do it? Why do you do what you're doing? Because it's not to your point earlier, your job isn't easy either. Is there some core belief or just a really mission driven purpose that is fueling you day to day?
I think I do have a very core belief, which is that art is really good for us and it is really good for all people, and that I have this deep desire to help more people have a deep connection to artwork and to let it be a positive thing in their life. And I think that's been true across a bunch of different projects and things that I've done in my life. And that feels beyond career, like a very central thing to me and to what I think about in my day-to-day life and how I speak to people. And yeah, I think that kind of accessibility of having it integrated into our daily lives feels pretty core to who I am. So I think it's just that. There are other things I really do value supporting artists and have always been curious how to do that. And I really love having these deeper conversations with clients and helping people discover their taste in different works of art. And there's a lot to it that is really fulfilling to me. But I think I don't know, if I pivoted, that would have to be the core or the through line across anything that I would do in the future.
It seems so precious to you and just so critical to just the core of what you do, and it shines through in your work, and I think it distinguishes you in as a business owner and in this industry that we're in. Do you feel that core going through to when you were a kid? What's the first thing you remember as a kid about art?
It's so interesting. I feel like I have a mix of experience, but I have a few like negative experiences of feeling like it was not meant for me, or like I didn't belong in the art world, or I don't know, this just sense of it being like other in a lot of ways. And I think that is probably why I'm so interested in the approach that I'm interested in helping people really find their own way through the art market. But I also feel like I was always pretty creatively driven. I've always been very compelled by deeper conversations, and I'm not really a small talk person. I really want to get deep with people pretty quickly. And I feel like that has an artistic bent to it, and it feels very connected in a lot of ways to what I'm doing and the conversations that I do get to have now.
Yeah, it's I think that your experience in feeling like an outsider in the art world is really making you an advocate because you've been there. You felt that way. And so it puts you really uniquely positioned to help people through that because you've clearly made it over that hurdle, which is a big hurdle, I'll say, to feel like an outsider. And your clients are really just going to benefit from that. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks. Very nice.
Oh, of course. It's making me emotional because I've had experiences too. But I'll table that for the moment because I promised everyone that at the very end that they would hear your answers to your most frequently asked questions. I know we touched on one, which is about sourcing your artwork. What other frequently asked questions do you get?
Okay, my first one, which I'm guessing people will know the answer to because we've been talking about it this whole time, but I'm actually hoping to crowdsource something. Every single time, 90% of the time that I say that I'm an art consultant, I am immediately asked what an art consultant is. And I feel like I need a much better term. I feel I am an art consultant. I consult with people on their art choices and on how to navigate the art market. And I feel like more than curator, a consultant is someone who's there with you through the whole journey. I'm not selecting pieces for you. I'm really supporting you in that process. We're doing it together. It's not my taste, as we've talked about. but it's an insufficient term. And it's really an issue that people ask me literally every time. So that is my first frequently asked question. I just want to say one other thing with how I actually source art, because I feel like a lot of people want a really granular answer to that. There are pretty much anywhere you live, unless you're really rural, there are almost always local galleries or arts organizations that you can always start at. It can be a very accessible place to begin looking for art. There are some pretty incredible online marketplaces if you want to do some like from home, getting a sense of your taste. Artsy, Saatchi art, there's tons of them. So just exploring the online world. I'm a really big fan of finding artists on Instagram. I think it can be a cool way to see people's processes, their behind the scenes, these like deeper, more narratively driven components of who is making the art and aspects to that. So that's how I find artists. This is a big one. I feel like I get a lot of different couples who do not agree on their art taste. It's really a frequent thing that I come across in my work. And I think to me, it's speaking to some kind of broader thing that's happening where couples can agree on all sorts of design components and big decisions, but art is so emotional and personal and subjective, and it can be a really difficult bridge. So I've come up with this whole framework, really, which is just aimed at getting to these deeper components behind our gut reaction and having conversations around what it is that you're protecting in your reaction to something. And how can we step out of whatever genre you are attracted to or repelled to and find these like middle ground pieces that are actually telling both couples stories and are able to really represent both people without compromise, because you really do not want to compromise.
Wow, another layer of complication that I didn't even imagine. But yeah, when you're putting something in someone's house, if you have two people in that house, even though art is so personal to each person, and even though they're a couple, it doesn't mean they're gonna have the same art. Wow, that's complicated.
Sometimes it's like really opposite. It's wild. I did not know that before getting this question so often, but it's pretty widespread. And then the last one I just want to throw out there in case there are artists listening. I feel like I get a lot of requests from artists just curious if I represent them or how they can work with me. I don't represent artists, but I'm always looking for new art. So people are always welcome to send me portfolios or websites. I'm always curious to see what people are making and add it to my database. And I have a few like services that I do with artists that are somewhat light touch, but just different ways of like businesses as an artist, different things that I'm looking for when I'm on your website, things along that nature. But people are always welcome to send me portfolios. So please do.
So cool. Thank you for preemptively answering those questions, because it is true. Art consultant and what you do, it's so unique and niche. Similar to the questions I get about what the heck I do. Definitely, I'm going to put the call out there to the hive mind to crowdsource different words for this to see if we can come up with the magic words that as soon as everyone hears it, they're gonna know.
I would love it. It would be amazing.
Okay, I'll put the call out there, because to be honest, when I say what I do, they think I do what you do.
Which is amazing. Maybe I should just say I do what you do, and then they'll know what I do.
So funny. Oh, anyway, this is great. So tell us, where can listeners find and engage with you personally and also your business?
I have an email newsletter that I send out every other Thursday that has a bunch of different things. I'll talk about how to collect pieces, I'll share insights, I'll share artwork. It's pretty across the board. I am on pretty much all social media, I'd say mostly Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, but you can find me anywhere. My website has a bunch of different offers for collectors, clients, interior designers, artists. Definitely a spot to poke around a little bit. And yeah, I'm always in my email, so people can certainly send me an email and get direction if they were looking for something
Wonderful.
specific.
We'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can get your direct line, because I know people are going to be really interested in talking to you, whether they're artists or collectors or galleries or anywhere in between.
I really appreciate this conversation. Thanks for having me on and asking great questions.
Oh, absolutely. It's always great to talk to you, especially as a fellow business owner in this space who's doing something so cool and so unique. And I just appreciate that you're doing it here in Denver, because you could so easily just move to New York or Chicago or LA or somewhere with a bigger art scene. But it's so important, I think, to have someone like you here. So thank you.
Yeah, I like a challenge, as you said.
Oh, thank you, Delia, for being
Thanks, yeah.
a great guest. We could go on for hours, but I'm going to bring us to a close today. Thank you for taking us backstage into what you do, and I'm looking forward to our future conversations.
Me as well, always.
See ya.
Bye.
Museum Backstage podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.